Hi, SpongeGex here, and welcome to episode 3 of my Walt Disney Treasures review series, where I share my thoughts on the classic cartoons featured on a rare Disney DVD series called Walt Disney Treasures. I recently did an episode covering the black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons, and I figured I should follow it up with cartoons of a very similar nature, starring Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. The Oswald collection is one of the last additions to Walt Disney's Treasure DVDs. I'm sure many of you already heard the stories of this legendary, once-forgotten character, but for those who don't know, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is basically a look at what could have been. He was the original Mickey Mouse. He predated Mickey Mouse's creation by a few years. He was Walt Disney and Iwerks' first cartoon star. Unfortunately, Walt lost the rights to Oswald to its original distributor at Universal. Walt really got screwed over and lost both Oswald and a majority of the men who helped Walt make those cartoons to begin with, as they were offered a new contract to ditch Walt and work for Universal. So, Iwerks stuck with Walt and helped Walt come up with a new character, Mickey Mouse. I mentioned in my review for the black and white Mickey cartoons that I disliked the majority of the black and white Mickey cartoons, especially the ones from Iwerks, but I was admittedly surprised by a lot of the Oswald cartoons. I think Oswald's cartoons are overall better than most of Mickey Mouse's black and white catalog, despite predating Mickey. Maybe it helps that the Oswald cartoons were made before sound cartoons were even an option, and so back then they had to have organists perform live soundtracks to accompany silent films. So for this DVD, the Walt Disney Studios got an orchestra to remake the music for these silent shorts, making them more pleasant to listen to compared to the grainy squawks, squeaks, and clopping of the old black and white Mickey shorts. I kind of wish the studio added some sound effects though, but it's overall nicely redone music. I kind of wish they did the same for both the black and white Mickey cartoons or even Fantasia. Like, I don't really want to see them, like, redub or redo the music or voices for, like, the colored cartoons. Yeah, they already tried that with the Have a Laugh productions, and those were awful. They were just butchered cartoons. And it didn't feel like the dubbing actually matched the cartoons anymore, along with all the quick cuts they did. And so, otherwise, like, I wouldn't mind them redubbing the black and white Mickey cartoons, because they are just painful to listen to, but I don't mind it so much with the colored ones, just the black and white ones. So, despite not being the biggest fan of Iwerks' cartoons, this DVD admittedly gave me more respect for Iwerks' legacy. For Disc 2 includes a very nice documentary that was made by his daughter, and it shows how after he left the Disney studio to work at MGM Studios, he struggled with making his own shorts, like Flip the Frog, and he came back to Disney and was responsible for many technical achievements, including being the inspiration for the multiplane camera. He came up with a way to make the live-action animated segments in movies like The Three Caballeros and Mary Poppins, to even coming up with the Xerox system, which was used in a majority of animated films from 1960s to 70s, like 101 Dalmatians. It was basically a way to take the pencil line drawings and make a faster way of, moving them onto a cell, basically. Back then, it was a lengthier, more time-consuming process. How you had to have the pencil drawings, and you had to have someone re-ink it, and then paint it and all that. And so they found a quicker way to do it with the Xerox system. It made things look a little sketchier, though, but it was a quicker way of making cartoons back then. So he even went on to make special effects for other films, like coming up with the visual effects for Alfred Hitchcock's movie The Birds. So Iwerks was the one who found a way to duplicate frames of birds to scatter across the screen, giving the illusion that the world is being attacked by many disturbed birds. So I may not like Iwerks as a cartoonist or storyteller, but dang, he was amazing when it came to visual effects and tools to enhance the visuals of films. He truly was influential and very inspirational in those departments, and I can't deny his creativity for that. While there are some good cartoons and features on this 2-disc set, I found this to be one of the most underwhelming Walt Disney Treasure DVDs, as it has the least amount of content, the least amount of hours of content, and it isn't the worst in the collection, though. I was more disappointed in 2 other DVDs I had. There's one for Disneyland where it had a a broadcast of when Disneyland first opened, and it was really underwhelming. It's one thing to watch black and white cartoons, but black and white broadcasts, it's really harder to see like what's going on with, you know, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of live action when it comes to black and white. I'm more into it when it's cartoons per se, and I found it overall really boring. But then again, Disneyland was an underwhelming opening, so it doesn't really surprise me that even the broadcast itself was underwhelming. But there's also another DVD called Your Host Walt Disney, and I thought it sounded real exciting at first because it included episodes from his anthology series. And I was thinking it would have been like a season kind of thing. Like it would have had a big wave of episodes from like the first season or something. Instead, it was only like a collection of 4 episodes, like 2 on each disc. So, and each episode's about an hour long. And I don't know. A part of me really wishes Disney Plus would add the Walt Disney TV series as its own series. Instead, they only have a few episodes as they have them listed as movies for some reason. But I want to watch it in chronological order. It's like you try looking them up on YouTube. They got a lot of segments cut out, mainly segments that included clips from movies or shorts. But either way, there's a lot of episodes missing. So it'd be nice to actually be able to watch it chronologically. See it from the first episode all the way to the last one that aired, and that would have been really cool. Yeah, I can understand why it would be impossible to do that on DVD. It's just way too much, but a streaming service could make that possible, and Disney blew it. so yeah, I don't think the Oswald Collection's the worst Walt Disney Treasure DVD. I do think some of the ones that featured the Disneyland episodes are more underwhelming, but still a good DVD overall, but kind of pales in comparison, like, you know, the catalog of cartoons you got from, like, the Mickey, Donald, Goofy, or Pluto collections. For the Oswald DVDs, most of the episodes are featured on Disc 1. Keep in mind, it does not include every cartoon to ever star Oswald, only a majority of the ones that Iwerks produced. For a majority of some of the other Oswald cartoons are still under ownership of Universal. So Disney was only able to get back the rights to both the character and the shorts that Iwerks created. And I think there are even some Oswald shorts that are lost to time, like they're lost media. And so, yeah, this isn't a complete collection of Oswald, unfortunately. This, too, features no additional Oswald cartoons, just a documentary of Iwerks and 6 classic black and white shorts that were made during Iwerks' time, including 3 Alice comedy shorts, 2 of the first Mickey Mouse cartoons, including Plain Crazy and Steamboat Willie, and the Silly Symphony Skeleton Dance. I will share my thoughts on the Alice cartoons a little bit later towards the video, but I won't discuss the Mickey cartoons or Skeleton Dance, since I already covered these Mickey cartoons in my review for the black and white Mickey cartoons, and I would rather review the Skeleton Dance in a later review that I have planned for the Silly Symphonies themselves. While Oswald shorts are very similar to Mickey Mouse, Oswald was slightly more entertaining to watch than Mickey, in the black and white era at least. Oswald was more cartoony and was able to pull apart his limbs or the world around him to get stuff done, and he was just more entertaining to watch compared to Mickey. You feel like you've seen Mickey do everything he can in a lot of the early shorts, and Oswald, he was more unpredictable. So, Mickey had way too many cartoons where they all just felt too similar to one another, but a lot of Oswald's cartoons just felt like they kept changing up the scenery and scenarios, instead of relying on characters just dancing like inflatable idiots. Oswald was a long-forgotten character in Disney's history, and is most likely known by some people today because of the Disney epic Mickey video games. So back in 2006, Disney managed to reacquire the rights to Oswald from NBC Universal by trading an ESPN sportscaster in exchange for the rabbit, possibly the strangest trade I've ever heard of. Disney was pitched an amazing idea by a man named Warren Spector, who had an idea for a video game where Mickey gets trapped in a world called the Wasteland, inhabited by forgotten and scrapped Disney properties, characters, and lands based on the theme parks, and it was run by the undermined precursor to Mickey Mouse, Oswald himself. The game was mostly loved more for its story and concept, rather than its gameplay, which was kinda faulty. The idea of Mickey meeting and eventually befriending the character who came before him was a great idea. Honestly, it deserved its own movie or TV special. The game even got a sequel where Oswald was a player 2 to Mickey, where the two worked together to adventure further into Wasteland to try and save it from destruction. Unfortunately, the sequel underperformed and got negative to mixed reviews, which led to the cancellation of the third game that was planned, along with a few spin-offs, like an Epic Mickey racing game and an Epic Donald game starring Donald Duck and the other Duck characters from the Scrooge McDuck comics and DuckTales universe. We can only hope that someday the franchise gets revived, but since the 2012 release of Disney Epic Mickey 2, Oswald has mostly remained abandoned again, only briefly showing up in cameos like at the end of the theatrical Mickey Mouse short, Get a Horse, which aired alongside Frozen. He got a rather mean-spirited cameo in a Paul Rudd short, a Mickey short, where Mickey threw him away like garbage, and that was kind of uncalled for. And we even got a new black and white cartoon on YouTube and Disney Plus, animated by the legendary Disney animator Eric Goldberg. Luckily, Disney did announce that Oswald would be getting a new series on Disney Plus eventually, but we haven't heard from that in a long time. Like, that was announced as early as like when Disney Plus first opened, so it's hard to say like how long we have to wait to see Oswald truly come back, but I do look forward to seeing what they do with the character after so long. Anyways, let's get started on the first Oswald cartoon, Trolley Troubles. So this actually did this was included as a bonus feature in Disney Epic Mickey. I'm not sure whether to call this Oswald's equivalent to Plane Crazy or Steamboat Willie, but either way, it was the first cartoon to star Walt and Ub's first star, Oswald. Oswald had a taller and less short and round design like in most of his other cartoons. The cartoon itself feels very familiar, as plenty of Mickey cartoons recycled ideas from the short. Cartoons that come to mind when watching this one are Plane Crazy, Mickey's Steamroller, and Mickey's Choo Choo. In this short, Oswald runs a trolley and gives a ride to little bunnies, only for the trolley to run loose. It's a very generic plot, but some fun and impressive visuals for an early cartoon from the mid-1920s. 6 out of 10. Oh, Teacher. This is a strange one. You look at Oswald or Mickey and you probably see them as childish adults, but this cartoon portrays Oswald as a schoolboy. The short is overall pretty generic. Oswald tries giving his crush a ride to school, only for his rival, Pete, I think? I mean, he looks very similar to Pete's old design, but Pete ends up ruining Oswald's ride, and his crush ends up flinging off and landing in a pond, and so she gets upset with Oswald over something that wasn't even his fault. What was it with Iwerks always making the girl character so stuck up and angry? And I mean, the only time I understood, like, Minnie getting upset with Mickey was when he tried, like, touching her without permission, but a lot of times he always has, like, that gag where, like, the characters, like, turn around with their noses up, and then they, like, lift their skirt up and, like, bulge their butt towards them, or, you know, it's, like, such rude gestures, and it's like, what was the deal with this gag? I never liked it. It was always annoying. Even cows do this in his cartoons. And so, anyways, Pete steals Oswald's girl, and I honestly hate these kind of plots. They're just never fun to sit through. Strangely enough, Oswald's sweetheart in most cartoons is a cat named Hortensia, but in the earliest cartoons, his girlfriend was a girl bunny. I'm not sure if this character is an early version of Hortensia, but either way, canonically, Hortensia Cat is Oswald's girlfriend, but not in this short. Eventually, Oswald tries getting back at Pete, but Pete manages to somehow accidentally knock himself out in the process, and the rabbit girl walks by and sees Oswald holding his fist over a KO'd Pete. Now, you'd think this would end with her getting offended and running away in fear or anger over what she thinks Oswald just did. Oddly enough, she is turned on by Oswald beating up Pete. So, overall, it's a pretty dull short, but that ending did get a laugh out of me. 4 out of 10. Great Guns. This is a strange one. Oswald is summoned to go to war and must say farewell to his girlfriend. It's a generic war cartoon full of slapstick. Admittedly, this one is more violent than your typical classic Mickey cartoon. Rest in peace, Mr. Elephant. The cartoon surprisingly ends with Oswald getting shot with a cannon and supposedly dying. But his girlfriend, as a nurse, swoops up his pieces and shakes him up like a bartender, and Oswald is fine in the end. Pretty average cartoon overall, 4 out of 10. The Mechanical Cow. This one is just ridiculous and silly. Oswald just has a mechanical cow for no reason, He meets up with his girlfriend, but she gets abruptly kidnapped by mobsters. Oswald rides his mechanical cow to rescue her, and that's it. 3 out of 10. The Ocean Hop. Kind of a misleading title, since this mostly involves an airplane race. With a title like that, I was expecting a beach party or something, but in this short, Oswald tries entering a plane race with a lousy airplane he built himself. After his plane gets wrecked, Oswald gets assistance from his animal friends to help build him a new one, using a wiener dog as the base for the plane, wooden planks for wings, and a balloon to keep it airborne, and so it's mostly a short of silly airplane sight gags, and I can imagine this might have been very entertaining for those in the mid-1920s when this cartoon first aired. Since air travel still had a long way to go back then, it had a very primitive state, so the short seems to be a reflection of the many failed prototypes of trying to make man fly back in the days. And watching this kind of reminded me of my first time playing Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, where I kept building vehicles that kept acting up, forcing me to learn from my mistakes and get a better understanding of physics, and just kept going on with trial and errors until I got the vehicle I wanted. And so it's overall a simple cartoon, but still kind of charming. I at least liked it a lot better than the Mickey Mouse cartoon Plane Crazy, which is kind of similar in a way because it's about trying to build a plane that will stay afloat, but this one was just less irritating than that one. 5 out of 10. All Wet. Now this is more of a setting I was expecting from a name like Ocean Hop. This one feels very similar to a Mickey Mouse cartoon called Carnival Kid, which recycled a lot of the same gags with Mickey being a hot dog vendor, because in this one, Oswald was a hot dog vendor. Otherwise, this feels less like that Mickey Mouse cartoon, although it does have nods to it. It honestly feels more like a certain SpongeBob episode. So who remembers the SpongeBob episode Sponge Guard on Duty, where SpongeBob pretends to be a lifeguard to try and look cool, only to realize being a lifeguard is all about saving and protecting the lives of the beachgoers? So yeah, this short is almost the same thing, but less funny. Oswald pretends to be a lifeguard to try impressing a girl bunny who also has the hots for him. Oswald starts neglecting the other beachgoers in favor of the girl bunny. The girl bunny tries getting Oswald's attention by pretending to drown, only to start drowning for real, and Oswald has to save her. Yeah, kind of lame overall. Oswald doesn't get any comeuppance for his misbehavior. 3 out of 10. Rival Romeos. Yeah, this one sucks. In my review for black and white Mickey cartoons, I mentioned how my most hated Mickey cartoon was the Barn Dance, because it was just a mean-spirited cartoon, and this short is almost the same thing, except it has a more suitable ending. I hate love triangle stories, and that's what this is. This cartoon marks the debut of Oswald's main love interest, Hortensia, but you wouldn't be able to tell that if you just watched this short alone. So, Oswald tries wooing Hortensia with music, but a rival gets in the way and they start fighting over her. The cartoon Steamboat Willie actually recycled a gag from this cartoon with a goat eating the sheet music, causing a character to turn its tail like a handle, to have the goat spit the music out like a record player. In the end, Hortensia ditches the two and goes out with someone else, leaving Oswald and his rival to take turns kicking each other's butts for being such fools. Another gag that was actually used in a much better cartoon, The Wise Old Hen, which was Donald Duck's first cartoon. I'll probably get more on that when I talk about the Silly Symphonies. Overall, this cartoon isn't good, but I still find it better than the Barn Dance. It had some funny gags, but I think the gags were used in much better later cartoons. 2 out of 10. Bright Lights. This is overall a very generic plot, although it does have some fun visual gags. In this one, Oswald gets horny over wanting to see a dance show starring Hortensia, but he can't afford it. Most of the cartoon consists of him constantly trying to sneak into the show to get a peek, but getting chased by a bouncer. It eventually leads to Oswald getting in and accidentally unleashing wild cats that end up ruining the show and chasing everyone out as the building collapses. Some of the gags are funny, but they kind of get ruined by the same animations getting looped over and over. Yeah, old cartoons really had pacing issues. They really do drag on with repetitiveness. 4 out of 10. Ozzy of the Mounted. This feels way too familiar to the plenty of Mickey cartoons that involve Mickey chasing Pete, minus the damsel in distress for once. Heck, this cartoon even features an early version of Pete, back when he was still called Peg Leg Pete. He used to be a bear, though, for some reason. I'm not sure how Disney got away with basically using a character who technically belonged to Universal, but who cares? Universal really screwed over both Walt and Ub, so yeah. In this short, Oswald is a Mountie and has to catch Pete and put him in jail. Very generic chase cartoon. That's it. 2 out of 10. Oh, What a Night. Another cartoon that was featured in Epic Mickey. In this cartoon, Oswald is a knight on a mission to rescue Princess Hortensia from Pete. Very generic medieval story, but still kind of cute and charming. Arguably one of Oswald's best cartoons. 5 out of 10. Skyscrapers. This one felt very familiar, and that's because the Mickey Mouse cartoon, Building a Building, is actually a remake of this short. I found the Mickey version a lot cuter, and it was done a lot better. I feel like the Oswald version just has less chemistry between the three characters, where Mickey's cartoon did a much better job at setting up the relationships between all three, showing like what each character thinks of each other before the plot kicks off. So it does a much better job at establishing Pete as a bully and a creep before he swoops in and kidnaps Minnie, where compared to this short where it doesn't show him interacting with Oswald before he swoops in to try to kidnap Hortensia. So yeah, it felt like one of those rushed remakes where you try telling like an abridged version of a story, you don't include like all the charms that made the original so much better. I mean, I guess in a way it's like comparing this to a live-action remake of a Disney film, except this one is actually the original, oddly enough. So yeah, either way, I think the Mickey Mouse version was a lot better. The Oswald one is just missing the heart and charm of the Mickey remake. 3 out of 10. The Fox Chase. This feels very familiar to a later Donald Duck and Goofy cartoon, where Donald, Goofy, and Mickey and pals go on a fox hunt, even having a similar ending involving a skunk, except in this cartoon, the fox disguises as a skunk to scare everyone off. Where in the Donald cartoon, it ends with Donald thinking he caught the fox, only to accidentally pull out a skunk instead and scaring everyone off. So, just like many other Oswald cartoons, this isn't necessarily bad, but just compared to a later cartoon with a similar plot, but with better animation and gags, the original just kind of pales in comparison. 4 out of 10. And that was the last Oswald short featured on this DVD, sadly. Like I mentioned, there are more out there, but these were the only ones that Disney could acquire, unfortunately. I will share my thoughts on the 3 Alice comedy shorts that were included on Disc 2. For those who don't know, the Alice comedies were some of the earliest cartoons that Walt and Iwerks produced together. Walt Disney had a fascination with Lewis Carroll's stories of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. He even had dreams of making it into a movie one day. He even wanted it to be his first movie ever. Which he did eventually get a chance to make the movie in the 1950s, but did you know his original vision of Alice was supposed to be a live-action animated hybrid, where we had a live-action actress in a world full of animated characters and scenery? A part of me kind of wishes we did get that movie, like a Roger Rabbit-esque Alice in Wonderland. I mean, we technically got a live-action animated hybrid in the form of the Tim Burton versions, but that's more CG and not toony, like the Roger Rabbit effect. So, the idea was eventually scrapped in favor of a fully animated adaptation. Although Walt originally intended for Alice to be his first movie, plans changed and he ended up making Snow White first instead. And it wouldn't be till over a decade where he'd finally get to make Alice into a Disney film. Although Alice in Wonderland never got a live-action animated hybrid like Walt intended, he did manage to start off making black and white live-action shorts starring a character named Alice in a world full of cartoon characters. While they were inspired by the Alice stories, I'm sorry to say that the cartoons themselves have barely anything to do with the Alice in Wonderland stories. The only thing they have in common, aside from weirdness, is the main girl being named Alice. That's it. It's definitely a more modern take on Alice, where, I'm not sure what time period the original Alice books took place in, but they definitely didn't take place in the modern day, and you could tell that the Alice comedies took place in modern times. So, Walt's Alice comedies were heavily inspired by the Fleischer Studios' Out of the Inkwell shorts, where characters would run around live-action settings. So, Walt wanted to do the opposite, where instead of having cartoon characters in live action, he'd have a live-action actress running around in an animated setting. While the Alice comedies are technically the most important parts of Disney animation, it led to both the creation of Oswald and Mickey Mouse themselves. I'm sorry to say that I found these shorts very forgettable. Despite the technical achievements that these shorts were presented with back then, the animation for the characters were really stiff, and they're even cheaper than the ones you would see in both Oswald and Mickey Mouse shorts. Maybe it actually was a good thing that Disney lost those animators to Universal after all. Sorry for being so harsh, but I think the concept behind these cartoons were great, but it was clearly too ambitious for the time. Technology just wasn't as advanced yet, and so that's a common outcome for many of Walt Disney's ideas back then. So, surprisingly, not every Alice comedy is included on the Walt Disney Treasures DVDs. There are plenty missing. There's like only 3 included on the Oswald DVD, and a few others were included on another Walt Disney Treasures DVD called Walt Disney Rarities. Speaking of which, another thing that disappointed me is there's like at least 3 other Disney shorts that aren't included on any of the Walt Disney Treasure DVDs, and those were Chip and Dale cartoons. Chip and Dale eventually got 3 standalone cartoons, including like a Chip and a Miss and the Lone Chipmunk, and those are not included. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, because Walt Disney Treasures felt like it was a way of collecting every single theatrical short from Disney, and unfortunately the standalone Chip and Dale cartoons aren't included. You think they would have at least included them as bonus features on one of the Donald Duck volumes? I mean, they did it for Pluto Volume 2, where Disc 2 included the Figaro the Cat shorts. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Anyways, let's look at the Alice shorts included on Disc 2 of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Alice gets stung. Yeah, this one is bad. It almost starts off feeling like a Wonderland story, with a white rabbit getting chased around, except instead of Alice chasing it, her Felix the Cat knockoff friend is chasing it instead. We get one of those gags where the rabbit pleads to not be killed because it has a family to provide for, except this goes on way longer than it needs to, but hey, this was a silent film, so yeah, silent films dragged on back then when they didn't have dialogue to help speed it along, but yeah, in the end the rabbit revealed he was faking it and the chase continues. Yeah, many Looney Tunes shorts did this gag a lot better, with characters like Daffy or Bugs, so eventually Alice shows up with a gun for some reason, and she starts assaulting a poor bear for no reason. And was this supposed to be funny? This was just mean-spirited. And she just keeps shooting at the poor thing while laughing at it, and eventually the bear chases Alice and the cat into a barrel. The bear puts an angry beehive into it and sends the barrel rolling down a river as Alice and the cat get stung. Yeah, she pretty much deserved it. Overall, this is just an overall boring, stupid, and mean-spirited cartoon. 2 out of 10. Alice in the Woolly West. It's another painfully generic silent cartoon. Alice gets kidnapped by a Pete prototype, and counterfeit Felix has to save her. As if we haven't seen this plot done to death in Mickey cartoons. That's it. 1 out of 10. Alice's Balloon Race. Yeah, Oswald did this cartoon better. It's basically the exact same plot as the Ocean Hop, except with blimps instead of planes. It even has the same gag of tying balloons to a wiener dog to try flying, only to keep spinning around in circles. Another early cartoon that was done a lot better with different characters. 2 out of 10. And that was it for the Oswald cartoons. While I wouldn't say they hold up incredibly well today, I can at least respect them for being the inspiration for many cartoons to come. It was still fun to see the character responsible for Mickey Mouse's creation, along with seeing the documentary on Iwerks himself and his contribution to the film industry. In a way, this DVD is less about Oswald or Disney's legacy, but is more a celebration of Iwerks in general. He was a major key player in the creation of both Oswald, Mickey, and many visual effects and techniques used throughout many shorts and films, and he never really got the credit he deserved. It was definitely an interesting look into the past of filmmaking. It may not have been perfect, but it was still a fun look back. Well, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.